March the 21st, 2023. Guys, you're looking at the stock markets from CNBC. It is 3:50 p.m. They're closed. It is 3:50 p.m. Central Time now as I start this video. We saw a bounce in the stock markets today. The Dow came up over 300 points. But it is not a very large bounce compared to the cliff that everything fell off of, and we're going to take a look at it. Now, I'm sure most of you've heard that USB had bought out Credit Suisse to save them from a bank run, they say, for $3.2 billion as regulators look to shore up the global banking system. Something else that happened over the weekend that's not being talked about that much was the major banks around the world joined hands on bailouts and bail-ins. So they will all either do good or they will all collapse at the same time. When the government steps in and takes over and says, we're going to help you, what do you think the end results will be? But it says UBS agreed to buy its in-battle rival Credit Suisse for 3 billion Swiss francs or $3.2 billion Sunday. The terms of the deal will see Credit Suisse shareholders receive one USB share for every 22.48 Credit Suisse shares they hold. So, and they weren't that far apart. So it was a great loss for the shareholders and investors in Credit Suisse. Now, you talk about that bank. I think that was the Vatican's bank. Part of their holdings were there, things like that. But we've mentioned that. And I don't know what has happened with the banks there because you do have the Swiss Guard involved in Rome. But in September, I did a video talking about the Vatican had recalled all assets from around the world, I guess banking assets. It wasn't really, I don't think they were like all of them real banks. A lot of them may be investments and things like that. But they recalled everything back to Rome to the Vatican Bank. The same time the pipeline got blew up. Well, I think that was a signal that this was about to happen. And it's been propped up by running printing presses day and night here in Babylon. And again, one thing to remember is that we are seeing a great separation of the powers now as far as financial. There are a lot of them are going to digital coins and digital backed up by gold, So there's real assets involved, and people really like that in the economy of the big nation in Europe that's in Eastern Europe that got sanctioned so heavily after this involvement. They're the ones that now their stock market's up in real value. Their banks are in great shape, and everything backfired because certain entities were trying to sanction Russia by taking them away from the SWIFT banking system, I think is what was happening at that point. All of that backfired. And now you're going to see the collapse of a lot of the other systems because of that. Russia's doing good. But right now, England, you're doing some things that are really crazy. Your military is, or let me say your leaders are forcing your military to do it, I guess, would be maybe the more correct thing. But you're getting some pretty dirty things sent over there. And guys, you can't talk much about that. But it's like something's been depleted. It was used before. And they go in tanks, and those are being sent into Ukraine. And Russia said that, they had threatened us before. That it gets heavy like that they will sink the UK into the Atlantic Ocean. And so it's already been reported that it's shipped. So guys, if you don't think we're living the book of Revelation, maybe you need to reread it. But anyway, again, on this bail-in, I'm sure the elites made plenty of money, and the USB got it cheap. Again, 22.48 Credit Suisse shares for one USB share. So you got clipped pretty good there. Now, will that help, or was this a temporary bounce? The way they want to paint the picture, it's going to pull back up. I don't think that's really what's going to happen. We know that there's trouble worldwide. Again, you've got 6 or 7 of the major banks basically became one bank as far as bail-in and bail-outs over the weekend. Now, on the share swap, this is UBS. They bought out Credit Suisse. Their shares are rising back. You can see on the right on this 1 month chart. But going back to on the 14th, this thing dipped. And a lot of the other banking charts are very similar to this, except we're not quite seeing the rise. What we're seeing is that 24-to-1 swap at UBS. They only paid $3.2 billion and got probably $1 trillion worth of assets. And they have major players here. And so as the smaller banks get in trouble, more people are going to flock with their deposits into the super banks thinking that it's safer. It's just a bigger hole to dump your money into. Now, 1943, their high range, 52-week, they're almost back to it at 2085. Now, you don't see the huge numbers in the share of stocks, I notice, in Switzerland like you do the U.S. 1943, they're on a bounce coming back out after they decided before the 20th, notice, over the weekend, they came in Sunday, I think it was, and bought up Credit Suisse very cheaply. And so the big sharks are eating the small sharks. And what happens when the big sharks fall back? This is just what they call a dead cat bounce. And it's really out of fear is what they're doing, a lot of it. And there's people pulling the strings that are creating that fear in the banking system so they will see what we're seeing. Now, let's take a look at Credit Suisse. Now, again, look at the numbers in the right here. 52-week range, the high of 66. Basically, the dollar will vary 3 to 7 cents higher than the Swiss franc. So you can, just like the $3.2 trillion dollars and the 3 trillion Swiss francs. But the high was only 738. They just don't, and really, I guess it's from not dividing things a million times. I don't know. But anyway, look at where they're at today, 88.34. They're approaching all-time lows. Now, this is 1 year. Let's go back to the month because I want to compare this month data with the other banks. Here we have Credit Suisse. It looks like the U.S. banks. So the stockholders now, to get a share from the bank that just bought you out, you got to give them 24. And your shares are not worth very much right now. So, and as that goes down, look for that equation to change. But this is not looking good. They got bought out. But what's happening is that UBS does not want to create duplicity. They don't need the employees of UBS, huge bank. Of Credit Suisse, which is a huge bank too. So there's a lot of people that's going to lose their jobs in the thousands. And that probably has something to do with this number. Now I want to go over and look at the U.S. stocks and what's listed there as the winner and losers for just a moment. Now this is called the market mover section, front page, go to markets, and you'll see this section. In the left is your green lines, that's pluses. In the right side, that's negative in percentage. See First Republic Bank right there. It really looks good. Looks like they stepped in and did their bail-ins and whatever else happened there, and that the bank's taking back off. Let's look at the reality and not this graph, because again, these graphs, especially this one, can be very deceiving. But we'll click on First Response Bank here. Now, this is a 1 month chart. Look at how similar this is to both USB and Credit Suisse. Credit Suisse hadn't come back up. USB is starting to come back up on that bounce. But in after hour trading, it was 1522. It closed at 1577, and that's where you get in the green line right there. That's not very much, really. And you look at the high here, 52-week range, $174 a share. Now you're at 15. They slightly bounced maybe from one of the previous days, but this is a 1 month chart. And this is what's happening on the green side of the winners and losers. Let's go down that line just a moment. Key Core, also in the green. We'll click on that and just take a look at it. Now, it closed at 1276. Again, this is green lining, and after hours trading, it's down just a little from that. This bounce may not last that long, but it's 52-week range. It wasn't that high. It was 2462. That's why these percentages or so along on that graph. But KeyCorp is a bank-based financial service company which operates through its Key Bank National Association called Key Bank and certain other subsidies. It provides a range of retail and commercial banking, commercial leasing, investment management. That's where it gets scary when they're managing your money. Commercial mortgage service and special services. So look at the chart, 1 month chart. A little bounce here today, but that's what the market's relying on. It looks like the market's going up, and when it's still trying to bounce out of the pit from hell. Now, let's go to Comerica. I think I heard in the comments or read in the comments that they had a lot to do with possibly either like your benefit cards, whether it's EBT or the card that they put your Social Security on. That I think someone said that bank had a lot to do with that. But Comerica here, let's see where it's at. Again, it's in the green, up 9.1% on today's bounce. The charts are almost identical. Again, from Switzerland around the world. Here, your 52-week range is 97 for the high in the last year at 29.17 low. So it's up from the lowest point, but the charts are all showing that drain through the last week and then a bounce today. How far will that go? There's so much coming out, so much information that would take an hour to go through it all, but I'm going to look at a few more of these charts just to show you how the numbers can create such an illusion. And I guess if you're a banker, you don't want people panicking, and that's not what you need to think that I'm doing, because I'm not. I'm trying to just make sure you're aware of what's going on so you know how to prepare properly. Food, water, other supplies. Let's go back and take a look at two more. You've got Truist, and then we're going to go to U.S. Bancorp. Now, let me say this before I forget. If you are dealing with any of these entities or their subsidiaries, then come in and let us know what you know about it, or and other things that we need to know may be tied with it. But going to Truist, now, it looks like the same graphs on every monthly chart here. 33.64 is where it's at after hours, down 0.06. But the weekly 52-week range is from $61.10 to down to $28.70. But again, look at the charts here, and if that bounce doesn't hold, it's going to get stuck in this range. And when that happens, the confidence factor will be gone. And then what happens to the banks and the people drawing money out? But these guys that are doing this understand that philosophy, and they're going to prepare accordingly. You need to do the same thing. Now, Truist Financial Corporation is a financial service company. The company operates through its commercial bank subsidiary, Truist Bank, the bank. The bank provides a range of banking and trust services for clients in its digital platform. The company's segments include consumer banking and wealth, corporate and commercial banking, and insurance holdings. Just make sure you know where your money's at. Now, this is U.S. Bancorp, 52-week range, 57.92 for the high, 32.72 for the low. After hours, it is still up by 0.08 cents or 0.22%. Now, the charts are again identical. We're looking at it coming back not over halfway from its highs. From now it's 37, it was at 57. But look at how many billions of dollars were wiped out as this thing drops down. Can it gain all of that back, or is it gone? What we're going to have to do is watch tomorrow throughout the rest of the week. But guys, you just need to prepare. And a lot of you are like we are. You keep a little in the bank to pay the automatic things like your insurance on your car that comes out, things like that. But the rest, you need to turn that fiat paper into survival supplies for you and your family. Now, Bancorp is a financial service holding company. It provides a range of financial services, including lending, deposit services, cash management, capital markets, and trust and investment management services. There's not a lot of trust there, but a lot of people deal with so much money, especially the people that were in with Silicon Valley Bank and those in California, that it's so, they have to have that money in a bank. It's so much of it coming and going, overnight payrolls, things like that. So those are the ones that are stuck. You guys aren't. Don't think they're gonna say, okay, tomorrow they're gonna come on news now. Maybe tomorrow or Monday, everything's gonna fall apart. No, they're gonna hide it in any way they can, like they're doing right now. So, again, I'm gonna put a link to the article I was talking about over in Europe and dealing with England. And guys, we're headed into some crazy times. And the reason is that these crazy leaders are pushing us there. We're watching it. You watch it. It's a heads up. Be safe.